Good morning. So I'm wearing my glasses today, so I look a little bit different. And the reason why I am is because most of the words are on the far side, so I need to be able to see these words. So I'm hoping it helps me read the book a little bit better because I was having a hard time before. The book is illustrated and written by the same person, Joe Polseno, and it's called Secrets of Reading Glen. And it's a book that I got at the thrift shop, which I was really excited about for so many reasons. One, because look how gorgeous that is. It's illustrated beautifully. And then also because look at the inside. So this came from the thrift shop, and then there's a picture of a child. And this is like, probably a pretty old photograph, and it's written by another child has written on it, a person named Gerard, and it says, "Happy birthday, Samuel!" exclamation point, from your friend Gerard. And I'm not sure whose picture this is. Is this Gerard's or Samuel's? I don't know, but it makes this book extra special. Secrets of Reading Glen. This book kind of takes place about the time that I'm reading this book. That there's some things that are happening at Reading Glen that are also happening in our woods. So the natural history of a wooded valley. In Reading, there is a glen where the wild geese fly and the salamander live, where the owl hoots in the moonlight and the wood thrush sings in the day. Wild grapes cling to the beech tree and the loon cries out in the night. The hills that surround the cove give sanctuary to the fox and the deer. The silence of a deep-shadowed summer's day is broken only by the drone of a cicada or the silver song of a scarlet tanager. Okay. The shadows are long and the glen is silent and dim. The heavy skies of January are gone, leaving patches of blue in the clouds. There's a whisper of wind through the trees. It is morning. It is early spring. It is time to awaken after a long cold winter. The streams that trickle through the glen are finally free of ice. They spill over the rocky ledges as they make their way down to the quiet cove. The sun creeps across the forest floor, warming the rocks and bringing life to the ferns. A hemlock branch trembles in the breeze, and the last of the snow tumbles to the ground. Reading Glen is awake. A spring peeper strikes a single note to signal the coming of March. The melting snow has created pockets of amber-colored pools in which the tiny frogs will lay their milky white eggs. The peeper strikes another note, this time a little louder, a little more insistent. He is answered by a second peeper, then another, and then still another. The chorus swells to a crescendo as the glen rings out with its first spring concert while a touch of winter is still in the air. Purple trilliums appear by the edge of the pool. Christmas ferns lift their fiddleheads a little higher each day. The peepers will sing until late spring, then vanish for the rest of the year. So this is happening in our forest. It's just at the end. The trilliums are leaving. And there's the fiddleheads. A ring of mist circles the moon. Will it rain in 3 days or will it snow? The days pass and the nights grow warmer. Gray, windy March turns into April green, and the rings around the moon turn into April showers. Each day, the woods are filled with new sounds and new songs as more birds arrive from the south. The peepers will still sing at night, but now they are joined by the booming voice of the great horned owl and the lonely call of the whippoorwill. Marsh marigolds and dogtooth violets bloom on the banks of the streams, and the first handful of watercress is ready to be gathered. The trilliums are fading, and the milkweed is waiting for June. The earth is no longer cold and hard. There is the sweet smell of ferns in the air. Now, this is definitely happening by us, yeah? Okay. Down by the edge of the pond where the skunk cabbage grows and the arrowheads nod, a green heron perches on a fallen branch, waiting patiently for a fish or a frog to swim by. His beak is as sharp as a spear and just as deadly. He stands motionless for perhaps 15 minutes, a seemingly lifeless form, and then, with a rapier-swift thrust of his beak, He spears an unsuspecting fish. Nearby at the water's edge, the quiet of the forest is broken by a large dead limb that crashes into the pond with a loud skew. The startled green heron takes to the sky. A spotted turtle climbs the half-sunken branch and basks in the warmth of the sun. The morning sun burns the mist from the cove. A Canada goose, swimming in a circle around a small island of grass, lowers his head and hisses. He is protecting his mate, who is sitting on the 4 white eggs. A muskrat, who might destroy the nest, hears the angry goose and quickly swims away. In a few weeks, the fuzzy yellow goslings will hatch. They will follow their parents wherever they go and will hide under the adults' wings when they are frightened. The sun climbs higher in the sky. The mist is gone. From the marsh grass on the island comes the sound of the 2 geese softly honking. A loud shattering rattle comes from the sky as the belted kingfisher announces his arrival from the south. I need to pause and just make sure that you know that there's a lot of he and hims in science books, especially about nature, and I think that the reason why is that the male birds are look different than the females, and maybe the artist and the storyteller finds it more compelling to focus on just the males, but it's important to know that there's she's in nature as well. So with wings held close to his body, the kingfisher dives straight into the water, emerging soaking wet with a fish in his mouth. He flies to the nearest branch to dry his feathers. Many times during the day, you will hear his distinctive rattle as this expert fisherman searches the river for a fish swimming close to the surface. Somewhere along the bank of the river, the kingfisher will dig a hole with his powerful beak and build a nest for his mate. Soon there will be as many as 8 little kingfishers imitating their parents and learning how to dive. When the barn swallows return to the bridge of by the Glen, spring is here to stay. These swift and graceful swallows dip and dive, skimming the surface of the water while catching mayflies on the wing. I mean, they can hunt while flying. From morning to dusk, from May to September, the air will be filled with the whir of their shiny blue wings and flashes of their chestnut-colored bellies. The swallows have come back to the Glen to build their nest of mud and straw beneath the eaves of the bridge. Evenings, when the wind dies down and the water is as smooth as glass, the swallows gather by the bridge, where they will roost for the night. They chirp, twitter, and scold until their voices are hushed by the dark. Ooh, raccoon. The forest is still and the night is dark. There is a rustle in the reeds by the water's edge, a grunt, a growl, and a splash. A fat, furry animal with bright, beady eyes has just caught a slippery green frog. That sly-looking face and that sad-looking frog belong to the crafty raccoon. The raccoon is a skilled hunter of crayfish and frogs and cannot resist an ear of sweet corn. In fact, she will eat almost anything. She enjoys rummaging through the garbage cans, looking for lumps of sugar and half-eaten sandwiches. She has a weakness for fresh-laid eggs and every once in a while gets caught in someone's chicken coop. There's no other way to put it. The raccoon is an amusing thief who rarely, if ever, gets caught. 3 days of summer rain have fallen on the Glen. Quiet brooks that once flowed gently down to the channel have turned into raging streams. The muddy water crashes over rocks and boulders, creating foamy waterfalls as it plunges down the hill. Ferns and flowers have been beaten flat by the deluge, and dead limbs litter the forest floor. The mushrooms of all sizes and colors have sprung from the wet earth. A spotted salamander crawls over the moist ground looking for a new place to hide. In the cove, fish feast on the worms and insects wash down from the slopes. The rains end. The sun slowly appears, bringing with it the smell of cinnamon ferns, pine trees, and the warm, wet earth. The strangest sound that comes from the glen is the voice of the loon that laughs in the night. That's true. From across the pond, you might see him before he suddenly disappears beneath the surface of the water, where this powerful and deep diving bird can swim as fast as a fish. On quiet nights in August, when the water is smooth and calm, you can hear his lonely laughter as he calls out from the dark. The loon will stay in the glen until the pond freezes over. Then he will often fly north instead of south to spend a cold and stormy winter along the North Atlantic coast. I didn't know that, so that's interesting. And I think not just he goes, but she goes as well. It is evening, and the wood thrush sings his twilight song. In the fading light, a bat flits over the surface of the quiet water. A nighthawk plunges from the sky, opens his large mouth, and captures an insect. From an old tree stump, the bright eyes of a white-footed mouse peer watchfully. She looks nervously about, then scurries for an acorn half hidden by the fallen leaves. The forest is nearly dark as the moon rises from behind the hills. Somewhere in the night, there drifts the song of an oven bird. The mouse peers out of her hole again and gathers more food by the light of the moon. So she's so tiny there, and there's some acorns. There is a burst of feathers in the air, and the blurred image of a large brown bird disappears through the tangled branches of the underbrush. It is the ruffled grouse. Until this elusive bird explodes at one's feet, he is almost impossible to find, and she is as well. For he blends perfectly with the leaves on the ground. Early some morning, you might hear a strange drumming sound echoing through the forest. It is the male ruffed grouse beating his wings rapidly to his side. The sound can be heard for great distances. It is the grouse's way of claiming his nesting territory and let all the other birds beware. Tiny specks in the sky circle and float gently toward the earth. They become larger and larger. Now they look like strips of black paper being blown about by the wind. Suddenly, they take the shape of large black birds, almost the size of eagles. These are turkey vultures riding the wind currents that rise above the hills. I think they have to, and if they do that, then it's like the smell of the food that they eat, which is rotting, they can smell it from really great distances. Let's see if the author tells us about that. Summer skies in Reading, with vultures making lazy circles in the clouds. The birds rise and fall with the wind, barely moving their wings. Not far from the glen, they roost in a tall, dead tree that juts from the base of a craggy ledge. At dawn, the morning breeze will sweep them back to the sky, where they will soar for the rest of the day and smell their food, which is rotting carcasses on the ground. So the author chose not to tell us that part. There is a disturbing swirl in the quiet brown waters of the cove. A large, fierce-looking pickerel with powerful jaws and sharp teeth is in pursuit of a sunfish. The tiny fish leaps out of the water, then plunges deep to hide in the weeds that twist and wave at the bottom of the pond. The frightened sunfish remains motionless in the reeds until the pickerel swims away. The pickerel is a savage hunter who preys on other fish. All the creatures in the pond fear her and flee for their lives when she is near. Occasionally, she will even capture a stray duckling or a young bird that has fallen from its nest. The shadow of a fishhawk passes over the cove. This time, it is the pickerel who heads for the weeds. Oh, that is a lovely picture. A strange and solitary bird lives in the glen, a bird seldom seen and rarely heard. It is the woodcock, who hunts in the mud flats in the dark of the night. He uses his long bill to probe in the mud, searching for night crawlers and other worms. This secretive bird comes to the cove each evening and is gone before the sun rises. Somewhere in the forest there is a secret place where the woodcock nests, a place that nobody knows. Listen some night for the rustle of his wings down in the mud flats by the edge of the cove. Midsummer, and the wild grapes are plump and bright and green. A summer silence settles upon the glen. The birds no longer sing as they did in the spring, for the mating season is past and they are busy rearing their young. There is an abrupt flash of wings as a plain-looking gray bird alights among the grape leaves. The catbird samples a grape to see if it is ripe. This inconspicuous bird can imitate a variety of sounds. He can meow like a cat, squawk like a chicken, even squeak like a rusty old gate. I was listening to this yesterday myself, out on the front, in my front yard. On many a moonlit night, when the woods are silent and a blanket of mist hangs over the glen, a sudden burst of song rings out. It is the catbird singing his solo until the moon dips behind the face of a cloud. Thank you, catbird. Because the catbird sits out front and imitates my cat meowing and it's really funny. So a large blue-gray bird descends from the darkening sky, gracefully extending his long, slender legs. The great blue heron lands gently in the reeds. Although this large bird does not nest in the glen, he comes each evening to the inlet to feed on fish and frogs. The heron is a solitary hunter, standing in the shallow end of the cove, not moving a single feather. He looks like a statue, frozen in time, and suddenly there's a lightning-swift swoosh. His sharp beak disappears into the water and comes up with a fish. Oh, lovely. Beginning at dusk and continuing until dawn, a mysterious barking sound echoes through the woods. Wild dogs, young foxes. What can the sound be? 4 bright yellow eyes peer out of the dark. They are the eyes of 2 young great horned owls, and they are crying out for food. Although they are almost full grown, they cannot yet take care of themselves, so they wait impatiently for their parent to return with her night's catch. The pine bough trembles as the mother alights with a dead skunk in her talons, and the owlets begin to feed. Soon the parents will return to the roosting tree less and less often. Before the summer is over, the downy owls will spread their huge wings, leap into the night, and learn to hunt in the dark for themselves. On the far side of the cove, the reeds hang heavy after a morning rain. The level of the water has risen and now covers the grassy glade where the heron hunts. A morning mist rises like smoke from the pond. 2 small wood ducks, who have spent the summer in the glen, swim out from behind a clump of marsh grass. A half-dozen ducklings will soon follow. They are waiting to hear a soft, raspy whistle from the mother duck, signaling that there is nothing to fear. The wood duck nest in hollow trees. Oh, we have to try to find that because we do have wood ducks at Sligo Creek. I didn't know that about the hollow trees. That's good. In hollow trees, sometimes, okay, let me read the whole sentence again. The wood duck nest in hollow trees, sometimes at quite a distance from the water. That's a good clue, isn't it? When newly hatched, the young have very sharp toenails that enable them to climb out of the deep, dark tree cavity. Sometimes as many as 12 ducklings tumble out of a dead tree trunk, land softly on the leaves, and follow their parents to the water. I'm totally going to go look for these when I go to the woods next time. That's super exciting. We have to look for tracks, I think. Oh, you have to approach very, very quietly so you don't scare them away. Okay. The swift and ruthless Cooper's hawk, we have those too, known as the big blue also known as the big blue darter, and the chicken hawk is the most feared creature in the glen. The explosive ruffed grouse is no match for this dread bird of prey, nor is the alert blue jay safe from his claws. He will plunge into a prickly briar patch in pursuit of a young grouse and chase him on foot if necessary. The Cooper's hawk is a hunter of the deep forest. With his short wings and long tail, he is able to fly through the tangled thickets of the woods with great speed and accuracy. Birds do not sing, and the forest is silent when the big blue darter appears in the glen. You know what? And they're very neat eaters. They pluck all the feathers of the bird out before they eat it. That's how you can tell a hawk has been eating. I don't even think that cats do that. And cats are nice. I wonder if raccoons do. We'll have to find out. Okay, but we do know that hawks eat other birds. So the first frost has come to the glen. This is a whole year in Reading Glen. The first frost has come to the glen. Day by day, the leaves of the sycamore tree have been falling to the ground. Crickets and katydids chirp in the hazy afternoon. Chipmunks are busy filling their burrows. Okay, let me do that again because I'm not sure if it went. My computer went to sleep for a minute. This is a long book. Crickets and katydids chirp in the hazy afternoon. Chipmunks are busy filling their burrows with nuts that must last through the long, cold winter. Soon the autumn winds will blow the remaining leaves to the ground. But today, the sun rises above the mist and the afternoon promises to be hot. The smell of wild grapes, like wine, fills the air as the insects drone on through the last few days of October's warmth. So let me just see, because look at how the small things are in this picture. Okay. Oh, the deer. A yearling pokes his head between the dried leaves of a beech tree. He cautiously approaches the still dark waters of the cove. And remember, you can't hear the footsteps of the deer. The trees are almost bare, and the young deer must be careful when he comes to the cove to drink. Later, when deep snows carpet the glen, he will stay in the high rocky hills where the hemlock trees grow thick and where there are many places for him to hide. If the winter is mild, perhaps he will find an abandoned apple orchard and feed on the frozen brown fruit. The young deer twitches his tail nervously and takes a few more cautious steps. From the reeds comes the raspy whistle of a wood duck. All is quiet, all is safe. The yearling lowers his head and drinks. And I'm going to say that because can you see that the antlers are just starting to come out of that little one's head? Cattails and reeds are alive as red-winged blackbirds arrive and fill the air with their checks and chirpings. The first of the large flocks is gathering for its long flight southward. Each day, more and more birds drop from the sky to join the enormous flock. Soon they will rise like a huge black cloud and follow the hills and the valleys to where the winter sun is warm. A strong wind has come down from the ridge. Tall, thin reeds make a dry, slapping sound. The birds become excited, fluttering and rising in small groups. In a moment, the sky will be filled with hundreds of wings as the birds are carried away by the wind. Throughout the day, large flocks of birds have been passing over the glen. Hundreds of swallows have gathered at the bridge, and new swarms of blackbirds arrive. Mallards and black ducks quack nervously in the cove. When the glen freezes over, they will fly to the open coastal waters. I just paused for a minute because I just noticed that formation of the ducks flying. A small flock of Canada geese splashes down on the pond. Their loud honking adds to the noise and excitement. In the morning, a large old female will take to the air. She will be followed by the rest of the geese. One by one, they will fall behind her in their well-known V formation, and she will lead them to the warm warmth of the south. I wonder if she's the only one that knows the way. So you can see there's so much going on in these winter months in this illustration. The somber gray tones of November have fallen upon the forest. The marsh grass has turned to brittle brown, and there is a thin sheet of ice on the pond. Autumn leaves lie frozen in the water where they fell. A solitary blackbird calls from the reeds, but there is no answer. Soon there will be only winter sounds in the glen. Chickadees and titmice will call from the hemlock trees, while tiny winter wrens flit through the brambles and the briars. Blue jays will shatter the silence with their harsh voices as they make their daily patrol. There is a stillness in the glen as the first snowflakes begin to fall softly. Let me bring you that picture close. Oh, that's delicious. During the night, snow has fallen silently on the glen. Hemlock boughs bend with its weight. The sounds of the forest are sharp and clear in the cold winter air. A flock of crows has discovered a sleeping barred owl, and they will give him no rest until he flies away. Somewhere in the hills, a yearling, and we remember that that's the deer, a yearling paws at the frozen ground, looking for tender moss. And that means this, not that the yearling has paws, but digging, looking for food. Pause at the frozen ground looking for tender moss. The trail of a fox circles the pond and disappears into the ponds. From across the cove comes a new sound, a good sound. It is the hushed voices of two young boys who have just discovered Redding Glen. And I'm a little bit going to cry because that's where the book ends. And it says the hushed voices of two young boys who have just discovered Redding Glen. And I'm thinking of these two who the book belonged to, one that was a gift and one who received it as a gift. Thank you. I'm glad that I was able to find this book at the thrift shop. That was very good.